Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Melissa. I am the owner and artist at the Top Drawer RVA located in Richmond, Virginia. I'm also a Dixie Belle brand ambassador. Today's big beautiful buffet is going to get a dark ombre makeover. I love the look of this buffet and it feels a little bit vintage, a little bit gothic to me. So we are going to do a beautiful dark ombre paint. First things first, with every project, a proper clean and prep is important. I take out all of the drawers, remove the hardware, and inspect the piece. After vacuuming out the interior, I can get in there with my white lining and give it a really good clean. The hardware on this piece is 100% completely intact. That means when this happens to me, I reuse the original hardware. It is a little bit dark and dingy. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to refresh that hardware and make it look bright and shiny and new. Included in my prep is always some Big Mamas butter. Big Mamas butter is great for refreshing drawer slides when they are wood on wood. I will do this to the interior of the drawer glides as well as the interior of the drawers. When I was cleaning this piece, I noticed that no matter how many times I cleaned and rinsed it with white lightning, my paper towels were coming away dirty. Sometimes this is tobacco on a piece if this lived in the home of a big smoker, but I could tell by the color on my rags that this was just a heavy-duty bleeder. So what does that mean when I say a bleeder? Well, that means tannins can leach through the wood, through that exterior finish and onto your rag. You can really see that color, that kind of earthy brown tannin coming off on the rag. That tells me I'm going to need to prep with Boss. I am a big fan of Boss in clear. I think this is the color that I use most out of the three. Boss is available in clear. It's also available in white and gray. I like to use the clear because if I'm going to distress my furniture painting back at all, I don't want to hit the white or the gray underneath the paint. So I covered the exterior of this entire piece in Boss with clear. There was also some fairly large chunks of veneer missing. Now, when I say I fix veneer, and I get killed on social media because of this, I just fix it and fill it. I am not a veneer magician or repair woman. I just like to get in here with my Dixie Belle's mud, fill in any holes, cracks, chips, whatever is hanging out on the piece, and make it flat again so that when I paint, I can paint directly over top and you'll never know that there were damages. So since the plan for this piece is 100% paint, it really doesn't matter what color of mud you use, brown, black, or white. I just used what I had on hand to fix this giant hole. Once this dries, you can use your sander or just a piece of sanding paper to sand it back to flat. So at this part of the process, you can see the front of this door. The actual piece of trim on the base is missing. There's a couple of options when it comes to repairing trim like this, and I just really wanted to make a mold and fill it and repair it. I didn't want to get too crazy with my repair. I just want to replace the missing area, and I'm going to do that and show you how I achieve this look. So I took myself to my favorite crafty store, Hobby Lobby. I love some Hobby Lobby. And I just bought some clay. They actually do have a kit there that you can purchase for around $20 to make an actual mold of something. But for this job, it's just pretty basic, just a straight across piece of trim. So I just used that clay to shape it. And this is a total experiment because I've actually never done this before. So here I'm just actually laying that clay on to see what kind of a look I can get. I want to make sure I can see the detail in the corners, and I can. So I'm going to mold this clay into the length that I need to replace that missing piece of trim on the base. So I just pushed it fairly hard against the door to make sure that I could get the detail on the piece. It's the same at the top as it is in the bottom. Once I pushed it across, I just laid it on the floor and I was able to fill it in with some resin. So So this was actually a pretty cheap way of repairing something. This clay itself only cost me $11, and I have more than 3/4 of the package left that I'll save for another rainy day when I might need to do this again. So the plan is to fill in this missing trim with my resin. Now here's the deal. I did a couple of things wrong, and I'm going to share it with you so that you, if you're trying this, can do them right. First of all, shake your resin. I haven't used this resin in about a million years, and I realized after I mixed it and poured it in that I should have stirred it and mixed it up before I started. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two is when I poured it into the actual mold itself, I kind of forgot that there was open ends on the mold. So that meant that the resin was leaking out. So I actually ended up doing this entire process twice because the first one was a fail. And the resin that I'm using for today's project is just the Amazing Casting resin. Again, you can buy it at your local craft store. I purchased mine at Hobby Lobby. And this is the part where I realized it was pouring out the ends. So I grabbed some more clay and just kind of dammed up the edges so that it wouldn't pour out. I did let this harden to see how it would go, but because I didn't mix my resin well enough, it really wasn't a viable piece. It was just too kind of squishy to use. So like I said, I repeated the entire process and did it the proper way. Second attempt was successful. So this is the part where I removed my resin trim mold. It's still kind of bendy because I didn't wait for it to 100% harden. I wanted to take it out and make sure that it fit on the spot on the front of the drawer. I took my little piece of bendy trim, cut off the edges where there was any overflow, and then literally just used some wood glue and stuck it on the piece. I taped it up to make sure that it would dry properly, but adherence-wise, I checked afterwards and it worked very well. So it's a win. I will totally do this again if I have missing trim. Now majority of my prep is done. I have used Boss on my piece. I used my Dixie Belle's mud on the top to fix any areas that needed replacing, as well as using a little bit of mud around that trim on the edges, kind of like a caulking to seal it into the piece, if that makes sense. I finished my repair jobs on the drawers, added a mold on the middle of a keyhole, and after all that hard work was done, I'm finally ready for paint. So what is the color plan for this piece? Well, I want a dark ombre. The majority of my piece is going to be caviar. So I started off using a base coat of caviar on the entire piece of this buffet, on the edges, the top, the sides, everywhere where I'm going to paint. Using this base coat is going to give me a nice strong base for when I come in and do my ombre blending. I also like using one solid color as a base to really inspect my piece and get in there and make sure that I'm not missing any spots. You know, there's always a tiny little piece of veneer missing from somewhere that you didn't see that you usually see when you're coming in and doing your base coat. I also left the feet naked because my plan for the feet is going to be stain. So the color Caviar that I'm using is a chalk mineral paint from the Dixie Belle chalk mineral paint line. I do like using this paint kind of the best because of its blending abilities. You can use a spray misting bottle filled with water to make sure that your paint goes on nice and smooth. My initial coat is usually quite thin, just getting in there and covering all of the wood. So I often get the question as to why do I do that initial base coat? Sometimes I do silk because silk paint has an all-in-one primer built into it. But remember, I put Boss on this piece in clear because it was a terrible, terrible bleeder. So the question is, why put a base coat of paint if you're just going to be doing an ombre effect? Well, this is going to kind of like hold my space, if you will. It's going to dry and it's going to cure and it's going to give me a good base to start off from. When I lay down my ombre colors, you're going to see me go kind of from dark to light. My plan for this piece is a little dark, a little bit brown and black mixed together. We're staying in the au naturel tones. So doing this nice strong base coat before I get in there with that best dang brush and start really pushing my paint around is going to ensure that maybe I only have to do one ombre blend instead of two. Having that nice dark base, if I pull any paint back or sand back, it's going to show through the bottom. So I hope that helps you in regards to why I do this initial base coat, because I get that question a lot. And let me tell you, if you use silk as a base coat with that built-in top coat and that built-in primer, it's really, really great for preventing stains and bleed through. But this piece needed that extra TLC with the Boss. So now that my first coat of Caviar is on, let's wait for it to dry and then get in and play with some paint. When you see me paint an ombre blend, I most likely will start just on one door. I'm not going to do the whole thing like in a step-by-step process. I'm going to go from one drawer or one door and then move myself along. It also helps me kind of lay out a plan, if that makes sense. Practicing on one drawer or a side or a door is really good for kind of getting the exact look that you want. Because if you went across and just applied, say, all the black caviar to the edges before you came in with your chocolate, and then you didn't like that blend, you're stuck with redoing the whole entire thing. So my advice is to, pare it down some. Work on one drawer or one door at a time. I grabbed a bunch of neutral colors for this plan, and originally I thought I would be adding Mud Puddle into one of the kind of ombre blends, but I did not end up using Mud Puddle. I went direct from Caviar to Chocolate to Sandbar. 3 colors, simple blend with that best dang brush, and it turned out perfect. Perfect to me anyways. You'll see me use 3 different brushes, one for each color. I'm going to lay down the color in the color pattern that I want, dark to light. I want the middle of the drawers to be the lightest. Then I'm going to use my best dang brush. Your best dang brush is like your magical blending tool. I'm not kidding when I say that this is magic. It makes blending super duper easy. So I take that brush and keep it damp and then wipe it off on a towel as I move along. I'm always going to start on the dark edges and then pull that color into the middle. You'll see me using small circular motions with my brush. This is also going to create a tiny bit of texture on your piece. I like this movement in my painting style. You can use your 3 separate brushes and gently pull those colors together, but for me, I like a cloudy ombre blend. I really think it looks a little bit more moody, and I really like it with these darker colors. So I ended up adding a tiny bit more chocolate to this. I wanted that touch of more brown. And then the trick is to remember exactly what you did, because you're going to have to do it to the rest of the drawers. Don't forget your color pattern. It helps if you're filming, you can go back and look. But if you need to, you can write it down as you go along. Do the same thing, the same process to the entire piece. Since your Dixie Belle paint is a water-based paint with zero VOCs, I paint inside. I paint in my dining room, that's now my workroom, around my dogs, kids, pets, anything you have. You don't have to worry about this paint being toxic at all. I've used it actually to make dog print art with my dog's feet. So it is safe and sound. Know that you are safe and sound painting inside with your Dixie Belle paint products. Make sure when you hold your brush and you're doing your ombre blending that you're holding it down closer to the bristles. It's going to give you a little bit more control as you're moving along, and you can control the amount of paint that you're pushing and blending. Finally done. It took a little while. This is not a small piece of furniture, but once it was done, it was absolutely stunning. Exactly what I wanted. I am going to work on the feet now. Normally when I do the feet in a lighter tone in a stain, I usually stain the top as well. But remember, we had a lot of damages to repair on the top of this piece. So I'm going to come in with my walnut gel stain. I love gel stain. I love it because it's easy peasy. All you need to do is wipe it on, and once it's on, it's on. You don't have to sand your surfaces first. You can make sure that they're clean. I did clean these feet with White Lightning, but you can scuff sand them as well. So wiping on the walnut gel stain is going to hide any of the variations that are on that existing stain. The legs were kind of beat up, throughout the years people would have scuffed them with their feet or maybe hit them with a broom. So this is just kind of like a really quick refresh. My recommendation is to wear gloves, because if you get gel stain, which is an oil-based product, in your manicure, it's going to be harder to get out. So wear some gloves, use your applicator pad, and wipe on your gel stain. You can seal your gel stain or you can leave it unsealed. I chose to seal my gel stain with clear coat in satin. Remember the original hardware for this piece? It's all there. So all I did was give it a quick swipe with a paper towel that had White Lightning on it. Then I'm going to take my gilding wax. I like to use gilding wax on top of hardware. I kind of like it better than spray paint, because this way you still have some of that darker tone that peeks through the edges. It looks a little bit more authentic. If you were to spray paint this hardware, it might be just a little bit too bright for the look that I'm going for. So I am using an artist craft brush to take my oil-based gilding wax and just apply it to the piece. This will harden up and it won't come off on your fingers. Just give it about 24 hours to harden up. Once I put it on the hardware, it's ready to go. You could buff it back if you wanted a touch more shine, but I like the little bit of an antiqued look. Now all that is really left is to seal my piece. I chose to use satin clear coat. I like the curved edge on the front of this dresser, and using a clear coat, a top coat with a tiny bit of shine, is going to help me keep that curved edge looking really, I don't know, kind of glowing in the light. So I'm going to use my sponge, which is dampened with a little bit of water, and I'm going to wipe on that milky clear coat. Don't worry, it looks milky, but it dries completely clear. I wet distressed some of the edges so wood would peek through a little bit, and then my final touches are wax. I came in with my Best Dang Wax in black to highlight some of the edges a bit, and then use that same gold gilding wax to shine up my corners. Again, this wax here, the gilding wax that I'm using, is oil-based, so you can do it last. The other wax that I was using is a water-based wax. You can do that before or after your clear coat. Not much left now. All you need to do is put back on that original hardware. Remember, I polished this one up with gold gilding wax to make it look new and shiny. And this, my friends, is the final result. What do you think? I absolutely love a dark ombre. I don't do it often enough, but every time I put this on a piece, I absolutely love it. If you get a chance to like and subscribe my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. And if you tried this look, send me a picture. I'd love to see what you create.